live.
Yay!
Welcome, everyone. This is ACDC, Araceli and Colette, the dynamic change.
For the dynamic duo.
The dynamic duo, that's correct.
For all things real estate and finance. See, I cut her off.
That's right. So my name is Araceli, and I'm a transition wealth advisor and a real estate investor. And I believe that every life transition doesn't have to be financially devastating and stressful. I work mostly with professional women to empower them to take charge of their financial life. And I do that through crafting a financial plan that fits their lifestyle and dreams. And what makes me different from other advisors is that I take every approach very simple by designing a budget and educating people about cash flow. Super, super important. This removes the fear and allows them to implement a long-term plan that becomes a very, very easy and exciting as well to implement. And always remember me, when you hear somebody saying that they're going through divorce or separation, someone that has lots of family member, or someone that has become blessed with an inheritance or a windfall. And I'm here with my partner, Colette, and she's going to tell you who she is.
Hi, good morning, everybody. Well, it's morning right now. My name is Colette Rabba, and I'm a real estate broker in the GTA West. I believe in helping people who are seeking real knowledge and making the best decisions when buying or selling a property in the GTA. We all know there's so much information out here on the internet. I help families make smart decisions when buying or selling their homes, and investors know their numbers even before making an offer. So there's a lot of misinformation out there and a lot of half-truths on the internet. So that's why we do this show, to give you expert guidance and honest truth when making decisions that work for you when you're buying or selling or investing in real estate. So we have a great subject today. I think it's something that everybody, well, I don't know if everybody knows it, but people are curious about it. People ask, both Araceli and I. Araceli and I are both real estate investors as well as homeowners ourselves. I'm a real estate agent. She is a financial advisor. Together we make our dynamic duo, because you can't really have one without the other.
Absolutely.
So if you want to buy a house, you have to know your finances first. So today, what are we talking about?
Well, the subject is using your house as an ATM. This is something that I've seen, fortunately or unfortunately, but it is happening. So we're just going to talk to you about it. What is the good thing and what is the bad thing about it? It's always a balance. So,
and I think, can we maybe use, like, let's say, a fictitious person as an example, just so people understand? Araceli and I always talk about lifestyle too, and that's a huge factor when you're considering using your house as an ATM. So when we say an ATM, you have equity in your house, you want to borrow it for something, you have a goal, or you have, there's a reason why you want to use the equity in your house. You've been paying it off for, let's say, okay, so do we want to pretend, let's say there's a single, because you like working with single women.
Yeah.
Let's say you can use Jane Doe as a single woman. She's been living in her home. Maybe she's, let's say, in her, you could say somebody like me. So let's say 50s, single, her kids are out of the house. I don't want to say it's me, but I'm just saying, like,
yeah,
I'm trying to paint a picture. So you don't have a lot of debt. You're working full time. She doesn't have any children, or maybe she has a child that still needs to go to school. That could be part of it. But she has some goals. So she comes to you, Araceli, and says, I have, let's say, $200,000 in a home equity line of credit that I could borrow. Let's talk about what I should do with that money. And should I even use it? Should I even use it?
As I said, the very first thing is, obviously you have to assess your current financial state, right?
Yeah.
Where are you? Like, you have a job that is secure. I wouldn't say secure in brackets, right? Because nothing is totally secure. But I mean, you have been in a job for 10, 15 years that that is not likely to go away. Maybe
Yeah.
you have a partner, or maybe you're by yourself, but you have acquired a property 10, 15 years ago.
And you
And
have a steady paycheck. So let's
you
just
have a
say
steady
this person,
paycheck. Exactly.
yeah, has an ongoing steady paycheck. COVID did or didn't affect them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. A lot of people were not affected by the
Yeah. Okay. So
what
let's say in
happened.
our example, this person has not been affected by COVID. She still is working full time. She still has a regular paycheck.
Mm-hmm. Correct.
So
And,
now,
she sticks to a budget. This is very important. This is the lifestyle. She's sticking to a budget, and she doesn't have very much debt. She uses a credit card, but she pays it every month. So in
oh,
reality, she doesn't have debt, right?
okay. Okay. I
Any
was
other
gonna
debt.
say maybe
So
she should have a little bit of debt. Maybe she has,
maybe, right?
and let's give her $20,000 in credit card debt.
Okay.
How about that? Okay.
Okay.
So do you want me to go to a whiteboard and we can write all this
Yeah,
stuff?
yep,
So
exactly. Let's go, and then we can discuss each one of the items, right? And in this case, she has a very strong financial position, which she can take um, a little bit more risk, right? So depending
Yeah.
on your financial position, if you
Yeah.
are in that situation and you have accumulated a lot of debt, whether it is something that maybe you lost your job and you couldn't find a job for a while, and you
Right.
didn't have a lot of savings, so you had to use your line of credit to continue to pay your lifestyle, then that debt can accumulate pretty quickly. So therefore, your financial position is not as strong, right? So
Right.
therefore, using the home as an ATM would be in a different context, right? But
Right.
let's just talk about what is the good about having equity. If you have been in your home for a while, 10, 15 years, at least in the GTA, there's definitely that you would have some equity.
Right.
And so what you could do is obviously the first, if you want to put that down, you have equity in the house. This is a good thing, right?
Right. Right. So,
Uh,
okay. Yeah, so sorry, I'm just messing around. So this whole whiteboard thing is new to me. So
yeah.
trying to
But
if I
it's
can
good. You're doing
color.
great.
Oh, thanks. So yeah, so I think the one thing that we really want to discuss is really they're like here you're giving somebody 200 in this case, you're giving somebody $200,000. You're like, oh my God, sounds great. Oh my gosh, what
Yeah.
am I going to do with all this money? I want to go on a vacation. That would be the first thing that would make me, want to spend this. Obviously not the full $200,000, but if I say, look, I've been working so hard, I've had a rough year with COVID, and everything is so, now we get to travel again. Do you think that travel or having a vacation or maybe a non-essential, everybody likes saying non-essential these days with COVID, but let's say travel is non-essential. Should I use my my HELOC for a vacation?
Well, it depends what you want to do. Sometimes people want to take their parents that maybe they're older and they like to go on a vacation that is, their lifetime vacation. Maybe they have a little bit of health issues, so they don't want to wait 2 or 3 more years, so they want to do it today, right?
Okay, so
So
do I put it in the good?
no, that is
The bad?
actually bad, because you know what? I always teach my clients that if there's something, you can have anything you want as long as you plan for it. And if you are planning a vacation that is going to cost you quite a bit of money because you are inviting people, you want to celebrate, an anniversary, something that is, really big for you, and
Right,
that it's going to cost you maybe $20,000 because you're taking your parents with you. So
right,
now this is okay. So how can we make it happen? If you have to borrow, then you really technically can't afford it, right? Because remember, you're taking that equity is not free money.
right.
It's money
Yeah,
that is accumulated in your home because of the current fair market value of the house.
right.
But you're
So
still borrowing that money.
right. So at let's say whatever, let's say, what did you say,
Yeah. Or,
$20,000?
pardon me?
What do you think a vacation like if you take, let's say, $20,000?
Well, if you're taking $20,000, $30,000, it can easily be uh, done if you're taking your family, depending how many members, and
Right.
if you're inviting your parents, definitely can go really quickly, right?
Oh yeah, no, $10,000 is like we
It's
went.
like maybe two people, right?
Right.
If you're
right,
taking your
exactly.
kids.
Depending on where you want to go. Right.
Exactly. So that's one of the things that I really don't recommend you take that from your house.
Right.
Also, buying a car, like if you are fond of luxury cars as well, it's
Yeah.
nothing that is, I consider that a depreciating asset instead of an appreciating asset.
Yeah.
So if you buy a car as well, probably
Well,
not the right thing to do,
I
right?
think the other thing too is if it's a car that this is the kind of I should have made it into a good or bad, because let's say you buy a car or you lease a car through the dealership, and the dealership says, oh well, you can lease a car, I need it for work, so it's a write-off. So if I say, okay, now I'm buying this car, and I'm gonna have through the dealership, they're gonna give me like a 1% interest rate, right? But if you go and you get it through your HELOC might be 3.5 or 4%. So obviously that doesn't make any sense to have it there. But if the dealership says, oh well, we're gonna, our rate is now 6%, then it's actually okay. Well, maybe HELOC isn't terrible to buy it, and if it's essential and you really need it.
Well, that is exactly it. So you have to really assess the financial repercussions of what it's going to happen, like whether you do it this way or that way. But it all goes back to your affordability. Like, what can you afford
Right.
On a regular basis, right? Like, do you already paid a car payment? May as well just keep it with the dealer, that it might be cheaper than to try to do it with an A when you're on a HELOC. But the good is, I think you need to put there that you have equity, right? So if you have accumulated equity due to the market, so basically your investment is paying out, right? So you're getting a gain out of what you originally paid. So the first one would be equity. So you have equity.
Yeah.
So what else can we do with that in a good way? So one thing that you could do is maybe you can loan the money for a higher interest.
Well, I think we should have the main thing should be, let's call it like the whole category should be something that is income. Do we want to call it income generating?
Yep.
So I think that's like one of the big things that and there's a lot of ways to say, oh, we can get something in that is in that category of income generating.
Mm-hmm.
So if we say, okay, let's say, what is an income generating product?
Mm-hmm.
So I think RSP we talked about.
Yeah, so you can contribute a big chunk to your RSP if you do have the room, and also if you have certain amount of time, I would say between 10 to 20 years. So everybody in their 40s that don't have a lot of RSP, that would be a great way to do it, because if you invest it properly, you have a good fair amount of time to grow it, right? However, you have to look at the entire picture. We're just giving you some examples, okay?
Right. And because you're borrowing, you still do have to pay back, and that's the key to talk to Araceli, because you have to know your numbers about what your HELOC, what percentage they're letting you borrow it at, versus over that span of time, is it even worth it for you? Because at some point, the interest is going to be too high, and is it, that product, the HELOC, is also something that may increase. It might not be like this is not going to change, the amount's not going to change in the next 5 years. And then how long is it going to take you to pay that off too? So again, you still have to contribute something else to that HELOC. It's very much like a mortgage product.
So one of the things that a lot of people would do for this, if you're borrowing to invest in an RSP, remember, you're probably going to get a big return on that year that you contribute that big chunk. So that if you plan what you're going to do, whether you're going to put that back to make a big payment of what you borrow, that would be a great idea, because then you can take, let's say, maybe half of what you borrow already paid for. Then you have only the remaining, that maybe the payments are very small, and maybe you can continue to pay that and make it quicker, right? So you can have that off your plate. So that is for
Exactly.
the RRSPs. So how about
What about my favorite?
eh?
Let's put my favorite one.
Yeah, buying an income property.
So there are lots of ways to do this. One of the ways that, you know, Araceli and I have both done, we buy an income property to have it have a renter in there, and the renter pays for the HELOC, basically, right? They're going to pay it down. And again, it's about the numbers. How much is that extra payment versus how much are they paying in rent? Now you also have to pay the taxes and the utilities and everything else that goes with renting another, owning another property. The other thing that I think people really, this is this sort of, we were talking earlier about, is it good or is it bad? Actually using the money for your property to improve it. So this, I think, can go in both categories. Because
kind of in the middle.
well, but that's it. So what I did, I didn't actually do it, but let's just say I took money out of my HELOC to renovate my basement to get a renter in there. So I also had to calculate it. So if I say, okay, I am going to, let's just make the math simple. So let's say I borrowed $10,000 and to renovate my basement, the renovation costs $10,000. How long is it going to take me to get that renter to pay off the $10,000, but also to pay off the pay the interest on it, but also for me to start making a little bit of money to go back into paying my mortgage. So that number is very tricky, and you have to have a good financial advisor to tell you this is what it's going to look like. This still is an investment, not just in your property now, but when you go to sell it, it will increase the value of your existing property. But let's just say you want to have an indoor pool and you're going to borrow $50,000 to do an indoor pool. Is that really going to bring you back equity at the end of the day?
I'm not too fond of pools because there's a lot of maintenance, but some people like it, right? So
that's why I said it. Actually, I have to be pretty firm about this. In Canada, I'm saying in Canada, if you have an indoor pool, it will start deteriorating the rest of your house because there's a lot of moisture in your house. So unless you have those barriers when it's inside of your actual living space, then you have to think of chlorine and you have to think of wear and tear on the rest of the house. So that's why I said a pool indoor is really, unless you live in a huge mansion and you have the space and you have, you know, the separation between that part of the house and the rest of the house, then go for it. But I'm just saying there are things that you can do in your house that will not bring you an improvement.
Correct. So that's and this goes back to the same thing. What is your lifestyle cost? You really need to know that. And if you don't, please contact me. I'll help you with it because everything goes back from it, right?
Yeah.
All the decisions that you're going to make moving forward depends on that lifestyle cost. And some people, they really have to have this for whatever reason, and that's okay. But you have to understand your numbers to see what decisions you're going to be making in the future.
Well, the other thing too, I just wanted to say about improving your own property. This is something that, let's just say your house is dated and you really want to sell it in the next, let's say 3 to 5 years. Absolutely spend the money and improve your property, get a new kitchen, spend it on the kitchens and baths, numbers. Because if you say, listen, I know I'm going to sell in about 5 years, but I want to enjoy it a little bit before I sell. So that amount of time is very, very important, because really, I want to say a new kitchen will sort of start looking dated in about 10 years. So if you're in the 5-year range that you're thinking that you're going to move in about 5 years, then sure, do the improvement now. It'll still look good. Obviously take care of it in the next 5 years. And then that way, you know, you're going to be paying off that HELOC for the renovations. But at the same time, it will improve the home when you go to sell it.
Yeah.
So that number is very, very important.
It also goes for windows and roofs. Obviously, that's something that is essential. But if you do have really older windows, It is actually going to improve your quality of life when you're there.
Right.
Plus,
It'll
it's going to save you also in utilities. So
Right.
there's a whole bunch of different things that it will help it. So
Exactly.
definitely.
You might physically not see it. So let's say you need more attic insulation. You might not physically see that improvement, but if you can write, let's say again, if you're selling in the next few years, you can write the insulation. So this is, you know, when you're reading a listing, that's when you spend your money to say, oh, new windows, new furnace, new roof. Those are the things that when you see it on the listing, go, oh my gosh, okay, I'm going to go take a look at this house.
Yeah.
So it doesn't have to be a visual improvement or cosmetic improvement. It could actually be the bones of the house that you're improving. Things like additions, things like, that's really big money. So that's something, again, that you can either talk to me or Araceli before you decide to do it and see what kind of improvement will actually bring you the best return. Outdoor pools, that's another little trick question, but
Yeah.
it could go either way.
Yeah,
but now because of COVID, everybody wants a pool.
Of course, you want to improve your outside space, right?
Right, but you can't improve your outside space without putting a pool in.
Yeah, that's right.
And the expense of a pool pools are very, especially now with COVID. Oh my gosh, pools have gone through the roof, so it's very, very expensive.
Yeah.
So okay, the other thing, what I think is a good reason to use your home equity line of credit is to buy not an income generating property, but to loan the money out to someone else. So either a rent to own situation or private, you become the private lender.
Yeah.
And you have to make sure that it's secure, that either you're on title of, let's say, you know, you have, I wouldn't say friends, but if you have a company, I know companies, Araceli knows companies that do help people they match them up with private lenders. So let's say Jane Doe wants to be a private lender to, she's borrowing the money at 3.5%, but then she has somebody who wants to borrow the money and they've agreed to, let's say, 15 or 20% short term. So let's say you lend out that money for, let's say, a year or 2 years. Home equity line of credit, usually you can pay back in full at any time. So that's something to ask your bank when you go to ask for, let's say, if I want to use the HELOC, how do I pay it back? And get those numbers figured out before you even discuss.
Absolutely. So everything, you know, I always go back. I look like a broken record, but you have to go and look at your current financial situation. What is it, how strong it is? Because the stronger you are, so you don't have a lot of debt, and now you have more risk to do all of these things. The other thing that you can do in private lending is some people, they like to borrow money for short term, whether they're renovating a house for selling it, and you can do that, and the interest that you will get will be higher. So it makes it a good way to borrow that money from your equity.
Okay, so how do you feel about paying down credit card debt? Let's say Jane Doe has, and we discussed that. We said, what did she have, $20,000 in credit card debt?
Absolutely. You know what? That is actually one of kind of one of the strategies that I use with my client. That could be out of that, Colette. It's not really income generating.
Okay, sorry, I'll take that off and I'll make a separate.
Yeah. So this is a strategy to be able to save on interest, because as you know, most credit cards are between 18 to 20%, sometimes more, right? And that the interest that you're paying, especially if you have a large debt, it's quite a lot. So your minimum payment is really not paying a whole lot. Like, it's paying very little of the principal that you owe.
Right, exactly.
So if you can consolidate and put it all into a better rate, which is normally a first mortgage or a line of credit that is maybe 3% versus 19%, absolutely it's a good strategy. But this is, I want to emphasize this.
Yes.
You don't have a plan to be able to live within your means, because there was a reason for you to be there, right? If you don't have a plan, then this is going to go back to the same thing. And you don't want to continue doing this moving forward. right? So if you do have a plan, you have a budget, and you're going to stick to it, then absolutely it's a really good way to save a lot of interest.
Yeah. And I think the thing too, again, if you know you have to, let's just, I don't even know, on $20,000 debt, if her minimum payment is, let's say, $400 or $500 a month, you're paying that anyway, and it's all interest, and you're not paying your debt down at all. But then if you put it into a HELOC and you say, okay, now my 400, 500, which I have to spend anyway,
Yeah.
is now paying down the actual debt plus the interest, then I will actually get it off my plate. And that peace of mind is so, so important.
Absolutely.
Get that off your, it's very stressful. I don't, some people, when I hear what kind of debt they have, I wouldn't sleep. I really wouldn't sleep at night. So I think it's really important for everybody to go through their books. And this is the other thing too, if I know you like working with single women, but partners, if you're married or if you're with someone, there sometimes people don't want to admit how much debt the other person or that they have to the other person. And that's the funny thing too. I hear the story all the time when people first get married, that they don't discuss debt until it's too late.
Yeah.
And now you've married this person and you've inherited half their debt.
Yeah. If I can say something to you, like if you are now planning to get married, make it a priority to go over your finances, both of you. What is it that you have in assets, and what do you have debt? If you have a student debt, or you have any other consumer debt, you maybe owe money to your parents. There's many layers, right? But discuss that and see how integrating the two of you, because obviously when you live together, the expenses go down a little bit. How are you going to get rid of it, right? Understanding also your personality, it's important, right? Because now sometimes I have couples that one of them is a spender and the other one is a saver, and it's like this, right? They're not aligned. So you have to have something that is aligned, and of course, you have to follow your own thing.
Right.
At the same time, when you're together, whatever is consolidated, you have to make sure that it's there and that you're not affecting the other partner, right?
Right. And whenever we talk about it, I always think of because some people, obviously, they're freaked out. They don't know what to do. They don't know where to start. It's very
it's daunting and overwhelming, right?
Overwhelming, yeah. So overwhelming. So I always like to look at it like going on a diet. It's different for everybody. You don't have to follow it. Sometimes you might have a little cheat day, not too big, but it's really something that you can discuss and say, okay, if I treat my finances like I treat my body, I want to be healthy, and finances is part of it. It's part of the bigger picture of having a good life. So, imagine my goal is to own a house like my beautiful background here.
Yeah.
I need to sweat a little bit. Just like if I want to lose 10 pounds, I got to sweat a little bit to make that goal at the end of the day, or at the end of the month, at the end of the year. And guess what? It's going to pay off. Just like being on a diet, just like exercising, you're going to start seeing that muscle tone. You're going to feel better. You're going to sleep better.
Exactly.
So this is why we do the show. This is why we want to show you things that you can do. Debt doesn't have to be overwhelming. There is a way to deal with it. If you don't own a property, but you do have debt and you want to discuss how to get rid of that debt, I'm going to stop sharing the screen. I think we get it.
Yeah. Oh, there's one more thing that we are actually not putting in here yet. The other thing that I've seen people using their equity for is to help their kids buying a property.
I don't know. Is that good or bad?
It depends how you want to look at it. There's actually good things. Obviously, if you're helping your kids and there's no other way for you to do it. Of course, buying a property right now is very daunting, it's very difficult, especially for somebody that is just starting. So you can help your kids that way. That's fantastic. However, there's another side of it as well, is that if you are, it goes like back and forth, right?
Both, right.
And if you do help them, it's going to be very good for them. You're going to feel very good about yourself. But what about yourself and your retirement? If you are having the equity of that home, as part of your retirement, then you're taking that chunk out of your retirement. And
Well,
you really need to be careful about this.
right. And I agree with you because let's just say, again, our example was a single woman. She's by herself. She doesn't have two
Exactly.
incomes. She can't share, you know, when it's a couple and you both have RSPs, and then obviously if you're still going to be together, you're going to share those amounts to
Mhm.
retire on. It's a little easier to fathom. But let's just say, there's a kid that they want to buy a property and they think they can afford, let's say $1 million right now, they can afford to buy something, and you want to give them a gift to help them with their deposit, let's say, or the down
Mhm.
payment, that $20,000 or $30,000 is really a little drop in the bucket. It's really not a big deal. And what is it going to look like for you to pay that $20,000
Yeah.
off for the next 10, 20 years? And then you think, okay, well, if that woman is, what did I say? Did we give her an age?
Around 50?
In her 50s? Yeah. So if she pays off that $20,000 in the next 10 years, then really, like you were saying, does she still have enough money to retire on? The other thing that you can do, and you can discuss this with your kids if you do want to go through this, is go on title with them. So when they go to sell, you can say, look, I'm borrowing, I'm lending you this money.
Mhm. You can pay me back
You
then.
pay me back when you sell it. So instead of, saying, okay, I'm going to give you this, let's say $20,000 now, you sell it in 10 years. I want $30,000 back.
Yeah, there's
Whatever.
many different ways to do it. Now
Yeah,
I want to go back into the bad. Okay, so obviously we
sure.
discussed the non-essential. So if you're planning a vacation that is going to cost you 20 to 30,000, probably not a good idea. A new car, the same. I'd rather just buy something that is more affordable.
Yeah,
But the one thing that is really bad is that your monthly mortgage payment will be increased.
of course, of course.
So
So whatever you
you
do,
have to you have to go back and the same. What is your budget? Can you afford that increase in your monthly expenses, right? And the other thing is, therefore, now you're starting a new mortgage. Guess what? Now, if you had 10 years left to pay your existing mortgage, now you're going to start again. And depending on the amortization that you choose, you're
right.
probably going to be 25 to 30 years again.
Well, the
So,
other thing too is, let's just say, okay, now I have this HELOC, and let's just play the game of being in real big trouble. So now I can't afford my monthly payments. I need to sell my house. If Because we're in Canada, any lender, big lender, will not let you overextend yourself. So obviously they always look at, and they want to get you to, they will insist on saying, we need to send an appraiser to your house to see how
mhm,
much we think it's worth. No matter what you think it's worth or what the market will bear, they have to have a professional come in, look at your house, reassess it, and then let you borrow what they think
yeah,
it's still under what you could sell for today if you don't pay them back. The bank always wants their money. So that's the thing to say, okay, look, your house is worth, yes, your house, you can borrow, let's say in this, our example, $200,000. The bank says, yes, you can do it. Do you really want to borrow that $200,000? Can you add that to your monthly payment?
mhm,
And what does that number look like to you?
yeah,
That is so stressful. We are very lucky in Canada too, may I just say. We have free healthcare in Canada. The people having to spend money to help themselves and to help their family members get through COVID cost thousands and thousands of dollars in other countries.
mhm,
This is something that as Canadians, we forget. We are spoiled a little bit.
yeah,
So think about that also. If you need to keep a little bit that, so for me, I have a home equity line of credit too. I don't touch it because I know if an emergency would arise that I really need to spend the money on something. Maybe one of my kids gets in trouble. Maybe I smash my car. I need a new car. Things like that. That's sort of like this little safety net that I feel that a home equity line of credit is actually really, really good that it's there.
mhm,
So you ask the bank, can I get a home equity line of credit? They say yes. If it costs you virtually nothing to ask that question, if they say, years ago, actually, when I bought my income property, that's how I did it. I did it through a HELOC.
Mhm.
And the bank didn't have to reassess my house. They're like, yep, you qualify for this much money. I said, okay, thank you. And that was it. So virtually they were giving me this money for free. I didn't have to reassess my house. I didn't have to jump through any hoops.
Yeah.
I had it
Well,
kept.
it wasn't really free, but I mean, you saved a lot of the process.
Of course, but I also at the same time, I didn't have to go and reapply for another
Yeah,
mortgage.
absolutely. Well, that is the beauty of having a HELOC, right?
Exactly,
So,
exactly.
which is good. Is you always have that amount available to you when you pay it, then it's still there for you to borrow. So
of course. So it's I'm saying the stress of it is
yeah.
is,
Oh,
know,
absolutely, absolutely. And especially if your circumstances have changed, right? Maybe you have a job that doesn't pay as much or it's temporary. There's lots and lots of things that change over time.
That's the other thing that we should add to the bad. If you do lose your job because of COVID, is this a good thing or a bad thing to actually start paying your bills through the line of credit? Because
Yeah.
you know you'll get your job, it'll come back eventually. But to use a HELOC, I don't even want to write it down on the
For this one, this is why it's so important to make a financial plan, because you need to have certain amount of money put away at all times for this purpose.
Right.
Especially when something like this in COVID, there's a lot of people that have gone through for 2, 3, 4 months with no job.
No income, right? No income.
Exactly. They have very minimum income and not comparable to what they used to make. But if they do have that emergency fund put away, that it's equivalent to 4 to 6 months of your salary, then you should be okay with maintaining that. Yeah. And you wouldn't have to go, or very minimum, into your line of credit, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So that's how I would structure it. But as I said, start your financial plan, no matter where you are. Even if you think that you don't have a lot of assets or something to work with, that's when you need to get started, because it's the habits that you form before you get more money to get you into a better position. So
you want to pay down. You want to pay down the debt.
Absolutely,
all the time. I'm sure they ask you too, should I even pay down my mortgage? I mean, I'm paying whatever, 2%. What do you think? Should I even pay it down? Should I even on the anniversary?
It depends what you want to do. And it always goes back to your monthly cash flow. What do you have? What other assets do you have? And money coming in. Like everything is balanced, right? Like you can take from here to go here. So it's like this, right? And depending on your circumstances and what you want to do, that's how the plan will be structured. But this was fantastic. I think that we covered all of the major points. If there's something that, something else that we didn't cover today, let us know. And we can put an episode just for that. So
and honestly, if you don't know your financial circumstances, but you are dreaming of owning, beautiful property like my background. And if it's possible, Araceli will tell you, she'll put you on the path of saying, okay, this is what you have to do. If you really want to afford something like this, we'll get a plan figured out, and that way you can work towards it. And it's really not as scary as some people think. So give Araceli a call and see if she can
absolutely.
Your finances.
We'll get you ready. When you're ready to buy, Colette will help you for sure.
Of course.
So don't despair. Take a look at it and just think really through before you're going to use your house as an ATM. And I hope this helped you decide all the good and the bad. So
absolutely. Good and bad, always.
Thank you so much, Colette, for being here and helping me with this episode. And we will see you next week.
It was fun.
Yeah.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.